Welcome to Sidetracked, your unofficial agency of record. I'm Shane.
And I'm Emily, and we help run Trek, a tech-driven, full-service creative agency based in Rockford, Illinois.
Here on the podcast, we tackle our clients' biggest marketing challenges. We reveal what's worked for us and dig into real-life case studies and practical strategies you can put to work today.
Curiosity is our compass, which is why we always start with a question.
All right, today's big question: how do I master show, don't tell marketing? And here to help us answer this question is Nick Grobe, our senior motion designer and also Sidetrack producer. Hi, Nick.
Hi, Nick.
Hey, how's it going?
Excellent.
Good to have you on this side. Always is.
Yeah. Yes.
You're the perfect person to have on this topic because when we talk about show, don't tell marketing, it often is video. So I'll take a step back, and Shane, maybe let's define what we mean by show, don't tell. Maybe it's a little self-explanatory, but let's just define it anyways.
Yes. Okay. So in my life outside of Trek, I write fiction, and in fiction writing circles, something you will often hear is show, don't tell. So instead of just like telling the facts of the story, show them through scene. Or instead of telling the reader, like, this guy is a jerk, show the reader this guy is a jerk through this guy's actions and dialogue. So allow the reader to pick up on it through scenes, dialogue, actual story. And we think about this in marketing a lot too with our clients. Instead of telling their audience what they do and that they are good at it and that they know what they're talking about, show them the client's expertise in a certain kind of manufacturing or services. And yeah, we often do that through video. It's the easiest way to show.
Yeah. So, like, Nick, what are some ways that you think are like the best fit for this kind of scenario? Like when we need to show and not tell, what has that looked like?
I mean, many times now in like modern cases, a lot of it is by virtue of maybe having very short attention spans or only a few quick seconds to get your message across, get whatever you need to teach, etc. So being able to have that visual impact, often accompanied by, potentially words on screen, voiceover, things like that. Like those things can still accompany it, but a lot of times you're having to hit them with a visual right off the bat, and very quickly to help. Also,
that
things
goldfish
like
attention span is like just one of the big drivers here, and we got to show them really fast before they like scroll to the next thing.
yeah, 100%. Or if it's also, it could be something that's maybe higher concept, or something like data or some sort of a process, something that needs that additional visual aid to really hammer your point home.
Yeah, I kind of want to push back on this idea that people have these terribly short attention spans, because we all know when we get interested in something, you can go down a rabbit hole and just spend a whole day learning about it, reading about it, diving into it if you're actually interested. I feel like a lot of times we need to use video, not necessarily because people have short attention spans, but because it captures their attention. That it's like the door in, and then if what you have to say is actually really valuable or interesting, then it's about keeping their attention.
And demonstrating a brand's message in a way that is easy to grab that attention and explain why you want to linger or why you want to learn more and that kind of thing. So when you want to do some of those deeper dives, like you were just saying, that second kind of application, what can that look like? In like what instances would someone want to do that kind of deeper dive from a B2B standpoint specifically? Like what would those deeper dives look like?
I mean, as one example, I think of something that we used to do a lot of. We still do in part, but and that's almost like the corporate documentary. That sort of peek behind the scene, that short little, almost like a short little film or a short bit about where you're not just telling people about what sets you apart, but you're showing them. You're showing the people behind your company. You're giving them a glimpse of the culture and what sets you apart. And I think that can be really powerful in making a connection, really connecting people to your brand. And it's a great use for it. And I think it also, in the right cases, and if you can get the right people involved, I think it can internally create a lot of buy-in, and really give people something that they can be proud of.
Mm. Yeah, I
That's
totally
often,
agree.
yeah, I was gonna say, I agree too. That's often some of my favorite stuff that we've done is not just like, and this is how our product works. It's more like, these are all the hands that had to touch this product or that are involved in this service so that when it gets to you, it is the quality or the the care that you've come to expect from working with us. Like that's how we get here. And yeah, to your point, Nick, that is a lot more of like the humans that are involved
Hmm.
and like showcasing that. Some of my favorite projects have been exactly that, even in B2B.
I think often of a potential client that came to us and we didn't end up doing this project, but they were selling a product that a lot of their competitors were making overseas and importing, and they were making it in the United States. And the way they explained it to us, they were making it with, high level of craftsmanship. It was an artisan product. It was being made in a facility that we were like, well, why don't we go there and we can take video of that and show people that it's being made and how it's being made, the care that's going into it. And this potential client pushed back because manufacturing is dirty, manufacturing is messy, facilities are, it's not the clean polish that they wanted to show, and they were showing the finished product in its end use application. And so we never ended up doing it, but I think about it all the time because it would have worked. That video showing the manufacturing of this product, it really actually would have worked.
Yeah.
Um,
They shy away
and
from the grease and the gears because they think no one wants to see it, but it is what
Hmm.
people want to see.
that's the story that people connect to. They wanna know, like you said, the hands that made it, the livelihoods that their purchase is supporting, the fact that, the people who are making this product are potentially their neighbors within their own community. Like, that story, if you can tell it through visuals, is huge, like, a huge point of connection,
Hmm.
for a buyer. So, yeah, I think about it all the time because that was the wrong take.
Well, I do think that I hear in working with clients often is, okay, I like the idea of showing and not just telling, but I can't have like my timeline doesn't work or my schedule to getting people on site, or I don't have the budget to do a full shoot that takes a couple of days, and like we don't have enough downtime where we'd be able to accommodate that. Long story short, I can't afford to do
Mm.
in-person shoots.
Mhm.
So even still, I think the 2D, 3D animation, the motion graphics are still a great way to get that point across if you can't overcome that, grease and gears, first person authentic kind of video. That doesn't mean you can't do it.
Yeah, so something not live action, something in the realm of animation, whether it's 2D, whether it's 3D, can certainly be a good fit. In terms of sometimes, that's going to allow you to sometimes get shots or get a point of view on something that you might not be able to get
Mm.
with footage, like, or with live action footage, like, maybe it's some sort of product visualization or some sort of internal process, right? That you can't, maybe we can't put a camera inside an engine, maybe, or a closed system, of some kind of, I don't know, some sort of closed system, right? But there are ways that we can illustrate it. There are ways that we can show what's going on. Maybe it's like a cross section. And in those instances, we can also, hit them with a lot of other sort of data points and information and a lot of supporting things. And then also it's an opportunity to potentially lean into some of your other brand elements and like really craft this sort of style and this other sort of visual direction that's leveraging, emotion language, developing emotion language for
I love
these
that.
elements that maybe you've only heretofore like seen on a printed page or on a website, a logo or something, right? Like giving a little bit more life and a little more depth to those things as well can be
I
I
like
don't know what
motion
a
language.
I don't know what emotion language is. What's emotion language?
I mean,
Motion language, not emotion language. Just
Yes,
to
what is
no.
a motion language?
yeah, I mean, I at its highest level, I think about it as a style, maybe, maybe how things look, but also very specifically how things move, how, something as simple as, you could think of it as simply as like how certain bits of text animate into screen, how your logo always animates, how, how even very basic, how a super is going to animate in for everyone in the company that's on screen. Like it's almost like think of it as like a regular other elements of a brand guide, but hey, do you only use the logo like this? Leave this amount of clear space. These are the approved colors. This is what a heading looks like. This is what a subhead looks like. But now take that and apply it to your motion graphics elements. That same system or that type of a system is really like a motion language. It's,
It's like the
how,
definition of showing and not telling, like for video. Like if for Trek and our brand guidelines are, like our voice is that, we're very curious and upbeat and positive. And if we had a motion language that was like really slow and like graceful, like not that we're not those things, or I mean, we're not slow, but we're not languid. Like, we're not gonna like we're just a little bit more like bubbly. So like the text might bounce or something versus like glide and move around. Like you're communicating something on the screen. You're not saying it, but you're communicating something about the brand by how it's displayed visually. And I love that.
Nick, what are your other favorite ways to show and not tell?
yeah, I think this is a different example, but I mean, even something like, if your team was at an event or a trade show or a convention or whatever it was, instead of, I mean, coming back, certainly come back. Maybe you're doing a blog or a post that's like a recap of the event, but actually maybe having someone there on the ground to sort of document it, show the energy at your booth or show the energy that was you had walking the floor of this show, and being able to, again, it's kind of a peek behind the curtain, right? Maybe it's you setting up, maybe it's a mixer that night, maybe it's you meeting people and hanging out, and like a lot of people that go to cons on the reg, like a lot of things they talk about are like the relationships. I only see these people at conventions, like once a year, and so there's these people coming together, and those also can go a long way. Those types of things can go a long way to speak about your brand, engage people. And I mean, you can pick that stuff up with your phone, someone in the booth, like you can do that stuff a lot more like sort of lo-fi. and really put something that's really fun, a fun recap together, you know? Um,
Yeah, that's another good point. Like, it doesn't need to be highly produced. And a lot of these examples we're talking about, they don't need to be highly produced. They are things you can pick up in the office to give a peek behind the curtain at company culture on an iPhone. And with phone editing tools these days, it's
yeah.
not that hard to do. But what are cases where you would say it actually is worth investing in higher end production versus keeping it casual?
Well, and one caveat I'd put there is I ain't throwing shit. I mean, camera phones are, I don't want to discount how good they are nowadays too. So don't be afraid to do that. But again, if you have some things, I mean, there are still some things that you just, you know, can't you just maybe aren't equipped to capture with just your standard phone. I mean, you see, I think about these incredible, I follow a lot of accounts, like they're so dumb, but yet they suck me in. It's like there's an account where it's like it's a company that makes these big presses, like, multi-ton presses, right? And then they'll put like an everyday object. They'll put like I don't know, a computer mouse in the press, or a squishy, right? Like a Neato
Mhm.
thing, all the kids play with, right? And then they'll shoot it being pressed with like a super high frame rate camera or something. And it's
Hmm.
just, it's like so
Wait,
awesome
what is
to
the
see it.
actual purpose of these presses?
I mean, maybe it stamps out some kind of
Or making sheet
metal, like a
metal.
junction
Yeah.
box. Yeah. Or maybe it stamps into,
Cool.
yeah, or maybe it's like a CNC machine that's cutting, but
Yeah.
I guess my point is like you're using these more sophisticated cameras and things to capture something, when you can see something in ultra high def or super
Hmm.
wild slow motion, that you just can't really, it's
Hmm.
almost like seeing something. It's almost like it almost abstracts it almost and turns it into like an art piece or something. And
Well,
people
and I
just go
think
crazy for it.
these videos you're talking about, often there maybe is a perception that they're doing it on their camera phone as well. And like there is that more live on your stories or more casual for like a reel to show something in a moment and that kind of thing. But what you're talking about actually does take a lot of production, and like these
Mm-hmm.
influencers and the people who maybe like I've seen videos also of people who do the commercials for like lip gloss or something, and they like drop a pomegranate in water and it like splashes up and stuff, and they like show their editing process, and they're like when you see the end thing, they make it seem like they're capturing all this on their phone, but they're not, or maybe they
Mhm.
capture some of it on their phone and then it's kind of like watered down a little bit to feel less produced, but it is still, and it requires more work, but just based on the channel, like maybe in the full commercial of it, it's that high, 4K definition, but when they're putting it as a reel on social, it's kind of like watered down to feel a little more organic.
Mm-hmm.
But both require production still.
Another example too is like, the types of looks and the types of feelings, vibes, emotions that you can get from different types of lighting, different types of lenses, like all these things that go into, framing, the composition of your shots. All these things that I think of in like a higher end production, those all matter and can make
Mm.
huge differences in the story you're telling.
So, takeaway for our clients when it comes to show don't tell marketing. I think the first question is, what are you trying to show? Are you trying to show your company culture? Are you trying to show your long history? Are you trying to show your process and how refined it is? Are you trying to show your product and how high quality it is? Are you trying to show your customer service? What are you trying to show? And then from there, think about the different types of video, whether it's live action, whether it's motion graphics, animation, needs to be highly produced, can be authentic from your phone, some mix.
I think it always does start with the goal, like
Yeah.
no marketing should start without knowing what you're trying to achieve and what you're trying to say and to who you're trying to say it to. So same as here.
Yeah.
So we have worked with this client in a couple of different ways, and we were trying to help them tell a story about sustainability in their manufacturing process. And it was a message that we were saying over and over again in words and in pictures. But in a brainstorm at one point, when we were just talking about how does this really land and maybe strike more of an emotional chord, and also like the value of what this client is actually doing, how do we demonstrate that? And I think the idea was we need to show them and not tell them. So this particular client is in the agricultural and a natural resource that they maintain to produce their product. So we said, let's put them in the field, let's put them in the forest so they can really understand from the beginning to the end what the impact of this work is and what it looks like. So Nick and I went and captured this footage. Nick, you want to talk a little bit about like what the whole process and like how we were able to do that showing of the message instead of just saying it with words?
Yeah, sure. So there was really this particular project. There was really in that showing of the process and the whole methodology of everything. There was really sort of two aspects of it. There was the sustainability and environmental side of it that you mentioned, but then there was also the actual taking of those resources, the production of it, and showing literally how that resource was then turned into the final product. So, and that was very much a sort of how it's made kind of a thing, right? So there were these two, and they were very stark contrast, right? Like you said, we've got, on the one hand, we're talking about this stewardship of this resource, and then on the other hand, we've got this sort of like,
Greasing
gritty
gears.
story, about how it's actually then like, I don't know, refined, I guess, for lack of a better word, and those were two very stark aspects of the project. But when you put them together, it really was able, I think, to drive that message home,
It was kind of a zoom out because the second part of the story that you're talking about is like what everyone thinks about for like when you're manufacturing things, you're consuming resources, you're taking. And so we were trying to counteract kind of that message of like, you're missing part of the story here because there's a whole giving and there's a circle of life that is, part of this participation. And you didn't mention, but kind of in that second piece, well, in both parts of the story, it's the people, who is actually making this product, who's caring about the little owl families that live in this forest. And like, if we take part of the forest here, then where do those owl families go? And the persons whose job it was to like watch for those things was a whole nother layer, like the people.
I didn't go on this trip, but I heard stories about it. It sounded like a very fun trip with a lot to learn about.
Yes, fun, and also there were some miserable points. 47 mosquito bites and some rain.
Yeah.
But that's part of nature. It was
That is,
authentic.
yes, you were really out in nature. What sort of equipment did you bring to capture all of this?
Yeah, I mean the process was fairly fleet. We had and it's fairly lightweight. I mean, we had a lot of ground to cover, as we literally, as we usually do. Inside the interior stuff, we were able to have a little bit more with us because it was a little bit of a more controlled environment. We weren't exposed to the elements, although, this there was a lot going on here. It's not a quiet place. There's a lot of, machinery and things like that. There are a lot of, things going on, but, we were able to bring in lights where we needed and, get into little places and show what we wanted. As far as when we were outside, what Emily started mentioning, we battled with the weather the whole time. It rained. So, we had to take precautions, obviously, with our cameras and gear and things like that. And also, again, we had a lot of literal ground to cover, seeing the different areas, because there were different portions of this, some of the things we wanted to show where it was like, well, this section of the forest is ready to be taken next for this reason. And, this area over here is being planted and tended, and this is our plan for, this is a long game, right? Because, so, and showing all these different areas and covering all this ground and explaining, through what we were capturing, why the process was as such and why these plans had been laid. It was a big undertaking,
And I probably didn't do it as much justice as I should have. So I should correct the record and say we weren't only showing and not telling, because this was, in terms of deployment, we had a mailer that went out and there were different sections of the mailer that would describe that process more explicitly. So like step 1 and like the first phase looks like this, and then the second phase looks like this. But then we wanted to like really drop them in the forest, like I said. So there was an augmented reality portion of it where you would scan and then it would put you in the middle of that part that we were talking about on the mail piece. So you can show with visuals in multiple ways, like we were showing visually on the mailer and then like supplementing with that video for that more emotional element.
But just telling on its own wouldn't have been nearly as effective.
Or believable, I think, because it's something that people say often and don't realize. They just discount it as not true, and we needed to show them that it was.
Yeah, every company has a sustainability story today. And if you really, truly are, if sustainability is core to your business and you can show that, it sets you apart from everybody who's just saying it.
Problem solved.
Problem solved.
Problem solved.
Thanks for joining us, Nick.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me back.
Always great. See you next time.
See you.
If you like this episode of Sidetracked, rate, review it, and share it with a friend.
Sidetracked is a production of Trek. We are produced by Nick Grove. You can learn more about us at trek.com.
See you next time.
See ya. One more thing. The final episode of this season of Sidetracked is going to be an AMA. Ask me and Emily anything.
Yes.
You can send your questions to podcast@trek.com.
Can't wait to read them. Okay, bye.